If doing SEO news during a lockdown had a theme song, it would probably be this.
Nothing ever happens. Nothing happens at all.
That is, unless you go on SEO Twitter, when then the song should probably be this.
Run to the hills.
In particular, there was a big old bust up with the Shopify CEO Toby Lutka, who came out with this absolute corker. 9 out of 10 of what people say Shopify doesn't do right with SEO is snake oil. And the SEO community, as usual, gave a reasoned and thoughtful response.
You fucking what?
One person commented, "Shopify is fine for low-level SEO, but if you're playing with the big boys, it will surely be a handicap." Someone else noted, "This tells me that you probably haven't been working with quality SEOs who are familiar with your platform." And my favourite of all, don't hate the game. Hate 9 out of 10 of the players. And obviously, because I am bored out of my mind, locked in my flat, I thought I would obviously chime in. So publicly, I said, for the most part, I think Shopify SEO is fine, but I'd love to see stop automatically canonicalizing things to a product level instead of a category level. Something cool to deal with redirects more efficiently would be nice, and also some Robots.txt and sitemap control would not go amiss. Privately, giant squid of anger.
I am a giant squid of anger.
Welcome to this week's Canonical Chronicle, the meme-infused SEO news that helps you stop your rankings from tanking. In this week's episode, we will be talking about Google updating the ranking factors to include core web vitals, SEMrush or SEMrush getting into hot water over selling links, couple of indexing problems and GMB bugs that you might be affecting your traffic, and lastly, we are of course going to see how you should properly optimize a Shopify site despite the fact that you can't really get full access to it. Before we get into it, if you want this video as a slide deck presentation, you can get it for free by subscribing to our newsletter. Just go to canonicalchronicle.com. And also, if you want to just skip ahead to the Shopify part of the video, all the timestamps are available below in the description. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so for all you children of the internet with the attention span of a PPC consultant, yes, I said it, here's everything that happened this week in search in 60 seconds or less. Firstly, core web vitals. So Google announced new ranking factors that are going to roll out in 2020 called core web vitals. In a recent blog post, they said, through both internal studies and industry research, users show that they prefer sites with a great page experience. So you're saying people don't like to use things that are slow and broken? So core web vitals are essentially speed and UX measurements that tell Google how user-friendly the website is. And why are they rolling it into the algorithm? Well, they said people don't like to wait around or use things that are broken. Sounds like my ex-girlfriend, if I'm honest. The 3 metrics they're going to be using is LCP, FID, and CLS, or largest contentful paint, first input delay, and cumulative layout shift. Core Web Vitals are now baked into Search Console themselves, or you can use Lighthouse or PageSpeed Insights tool to get the same metrics out. Now, last week, SEMrush got into a little bit of hot water with Google because of their new guest posting service. I know, I didn't think they were an agency either, but hey, it's 2020. If an SEO tool wants to be an agency or consistently host webinars with people that no one can actually understand, who am I to argue?
What would you instantly think this website was about, Ross? It's called Warren Slapout.
Now, the story is essentially John Mueller flagged that selling guest post links would be viewed as manipulation by the web spam team, so probably best not to do it. So very quickly, SEMrush took down the page and issued a formal statement saying that early this week we audited the first batch of guest posts and came to the conclusion that the service would require more time to implement given the volume of orders received and our commitment to excellence. Now, I personally think this is really great leadership from the SEMrush team to be able to adapt and listen to the community really quickly and just change something like that. So although a lot of people are piling up on them on Twitter, very well done to the SEMrush guys for being so agile. And lastly, SEOs were doing what SEOs do best. No, not ranking sites, getting into a tit for tat battle on Twitter. This time it was directed to Toby Luca. He's the Shopify CEO. He essentially said that 9 out of 10 of SEOs are pure snake oil, and he proclaimed that Shopify was pretty much perfect from an SEO point of view. Of course, the Twitter mob descended. However, in between all the kind of insults, there were actually some quite good suggestions to improve Shopify SEO. So at the end of this video, we're going to take a deeper dive into Shopify SEO, and we're going to show you how you can better increase your rankings if you're on the Shopify platform. Okay, so Core Web Vitals. First, Google announced that we'll be adding a new ranking factor to the algorithm, which is going to be measured by something called Core Web Vitals. So I was reading through the official documentation, and this is what they've kind of got to say about it. Through both internal studies and industry research, users show they prefer sites with a great page experience. I know, shocker. People like things that work. Sorry, I'll start with sarcasm. So anyway, they went on to say, in recent years, search has had a variety of user experience criteria, such as how quickly pages load and mobile friendliness as factors for ranking results. Earlier this month, the Chrome team announced Core Web Vitals, a set of metrics related to speed, responsiveness, and visual stability to help site owners measure user experience on the web. Today, we're building on this work and providing an early look at upcoming search ranking change that incorporates these page experience metrics. We will introduce a new signal that combines Core Web Vitals with our existing signals for page experience to provide a holistic picture of the quality of a user's experience on a web page. Cool, so we now have some new ranking factors that we now need to take into consideration. In particular, there's a couple of things we need to care about. So we need to care about how the page loads, interactivity, and visual stability. So in particular, the metrics that we're going to look at are largest contentful paint, or LCP, that's essentially how the page loads. First input delay, or FID, that's like what happens and when can the page become interactive. And lastly, cumulative layout shift, or CLS, that's kind of like what happens on the page when people start clicking through things. Okay, so now we've got the jargon down. How do we get these metrics and how do we start optimizing? So it's really easy. You just use the Google Lighthouse tool, and that's actually baked right into Chrome, or you use the Page Speed Insights tool. Both will now surface these metrics. So in short, if you've got a slow website where like icons move around when people click on stuff, you've really got your work cut out for you. Okay, so now on to the main event, Shopify SEO. As we mentioned earlier in the video, Shopify CEO Toby said that 9 out of 10 SEO recommendations are pure snake oil, and fair enough. Like, I totally get why he said it from a technical SEO standpoint. Out of the box, Shopify is fine, totally fine, so fine.
I'm fine! Totally fine!
Now, having a lot of experience myself with Shopify, I can say that for the most part, he's absolutely correct. Now, I personally have never had an issue ranking a Shopify site, but it needs a little bit of hacking just to get it right. And to give all due respect to Shopify, like I can really see their SEO efforts, and they've made a lot of trade-offs for the greater good. The thing with SEO is like there can't be a one size fits all. That's why there's a kind of running joke in the industry, like what's the top ranking factor for SEO? Well, it depends. So everything depends. And that being said, actually some things don't depend. And when it comes to technical SEO implementations, I think they've done a really good job. But here are some of the restrictions on Shopify when it comes to SEO. Okay, so firstly, there's no control over Robots.txt or servers. Therefore, you can't do any log file analysis, which isn't the be all and end all, especially if it's a small site. But for a bigger site, actually log file analysis is actually pretty critical to working out what the crawl path actually is. The fact that we don't have robots control means that we can't actually say to Google, hey, don't crawl this and do crawl that. Not a deal breaker, but not ideal. One of the guys on Twitter said they 301 their robots.txt to a completely different .txt file so they can actually change it themselves, and that seems to be a good hack or a workaround. Someone else said that using a want to say Agent Orange, but I think it's called Orange to Orange. Agent Orange is something different. You can actually use Cloudflare to control a lot of the log file stuff and do log file analysis there. So little workarounds there. The other thing with Shopify is there's no real sitemap control and there's no dedicated image or video sitemaps. Again, not a huge deal, but when it comes to actually sculpting what pages you want to be crawled and not, and having them properly categorized, like I want to control my sitemap, especially if I've got like, let's say like a video based website or something that's not like a standardized site where products aren't changing a lot. I probably want to tweak how often Google's coming back to that, and I want some more control. So one of the biggest bugbears when it comes to Shopify SEO is that we're kind of forced into this collections folder structure and everything is canonicalized to the product level. Now, what we mean by that is, so usually if you've got a collection of products, it'll be yoursite.com/collection/collection name, and then what should happen is it should then be the product. So imagine you're selling like mugs, dirty coffee mugs. It would be, the collection would be /collection/mugs, and then for this one it'd be like /grey or Pantone or something like that. But what actually happens inside of the code is that the product itself is actually just canonicalized to yoursite.com/product name. So when Google's looking at that, they're crawling all the way in and then it's getting canonicalized back. So the site structure is actually technically completely flat, which is not ideal because we want to group these into folder structures and internally link it to keep the relevance surrounding the product together instead of flattening it all out. Again, for small sites, not a huge deal, but for larger sites, quite a big deal. Now, because of all this stuff, the breadcrumb implementation is really, really bad. So for example, if you're clicking through all of a person's website, you're going to a collection, let's say mugs, then you're going to the Pantone mugs, and you click on the grey one. When you get to the grey one, the breadcrumbs, instead of being what you've just clicked on from the collection all the way to the product, it literally just goes product homepage. So you've actually only got the ability to jump backwards all the way to the homepage. I think that's bad UX, and it's bad for crawling as well. Okay, next, there's no out-of-the-box way to deal with redirects efficiently. It's not a huge deal. We do have a bulk import and export feature for redirects, but the problem with it is it doesn't take any regex or any rules. So you literally just need to do old URL to new URL. Again, for small sites, that's not really a big deal, but even little things like if you're moving from like the dub version to the non-dub version, you need to get an entire crawl of the site and put it in twice. And if you're then doing that for secure and non-secure, like you get 4 versions of the site and 4 versions of the redirects, and it gets really messy really quickly. Or you could write one rule and just deal with all of that right out the box. So it's not ideal. So next, something we personally came up against at Typee Media is internationalisation issues. I understand that they've made a lot of ground here and actually making it much easier to do multi-country websites that don't mean that you need to put it on a subfolder, on a subdomain and put it on a subfolder instead, but out of the box, it's just very hard to do a multi-country implementation, and it's even harder to do multi-language implementations. So also, this is just a little personal thing. It's got nothing to do with Shopify themselves, but their marketplace. There doesn't seem to be any quality control around themes that drastically slow down your website. So a lot of people will go on, buy a theme, put their logo on it, and they're good to go, which is amazing because it gets you up and running really quickly. Problem with that is a lot of these sites are loading in like 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds, and that is just brutal for SEO. So lastly, this one's not really like an SEO thing, it's more of a conversions thing, but from an SEO point of view, when you're building out your e-commerce store, most of your inbound links will usually be to your blog. They're rarely to the actual products themselves, although you want them to be to the products themselves. So what you tend to find on e-commerce sites is when you write these big, well-researched pieces on your blog, those rank for the informational part of your product. So for example, if you're selling green tea and you write a big blog post about the benefits of green tea, you're going to rank for the benefits of green tea, but no real way to cross-sell your green tea to the people that are coming on there. It would be lovely to see something where we can take actual product blocks out of the main bit of Shopify and drop them on the blog. It's just not quite there yet, but they're getting there. Okay, so that's everything about what we think about Shopify from an SEO point of view. Like, for the most part, if you've got a small store with maybe a couple hundred, less than 1,000 products, It's an absolutely perfect choice. There's a reason why they're one of the biggest companies in the world, literally, and one of the most successful e-commerce platforms. It's because it's very, very good. Some small things that SEOs maybe don't like if you're working on larger enterprise websites with lots of different needs, but for the most part it is quite good. Well, that's everything for this week's Canonical Chronicle. We do hope you've liked it. If you have, please hit the like button and subscribe to our email newsletter. But until next time, we'll see you later.